Thanks for staying with Citizen Weekend. I'm Lillian Muli, and tonight our topic of discussion, diabetes in children. For a long time, diabetes was associated with the elderly, but this is no longer the case, as the children being diagnosed with the disease is rising. In fact, currently there's a lot of misconception, a lot of misdiagnosis as well, and therefore we want to help demystify this condition in children, as well as get some answers from our medic expert in studio. And with me in studio this evening, I'll start on this end, is Dr. Joseph Kibasio. He heads the Division of Non-Communicable Diseases at the Ministry of Health. Thanks for being with us tonight. I'm also joined on this end by Samuel Mongare. Samuel is 13 years old, and he is a child that is living with diabetes. Hi, Samuel. How are you?
I'm fine.
Karibu sana. And with me in studio tonight as well, Joyce Washuka, who is Samuel's mother and is with us in studio. Karibu sana, thanks for joining us. Okay, so let's get into this conversation, and we invite your comments, your questions using SMS number 22422. Samuel, I've introduced you as being 13 years old. Tell me, where do you go to school? And tell me a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Samuel Mongare. I school in Mashimoni's quarters in Kibra. Yeah, and I've lived with diabetes for 2 years.
Yes. Yeah. Okay, so you've lived with diabetes for 2 years, meaning that the doctor diagnosed you with diabetes around the time you were 11, because you're 13 now.
Yeah.
Tell me, before you found out, or before the doctor found out what you were going through, or what it is that you had, how are you feeling? How are you feeling generally?
Yeah, like I was in a camp and I didn't know. So at the camp we were eating just normal. And I was feeling weak. I used to urinate a lot. I used to drink a lot of water. And I didn't have the appetite to eat. Yeah.
Had this gone on for a while, or did you just start feeling like this at a certain point, or had it gone on, like, were you consistently feeling this way?
Yeah. And I thought it was just like malaria, so I didn't tell my mom.
You didn't tell your mom? And in school, were you, like, did you tell anybody in school, your teachers, perhaps your friends?
No, by that time it was November, so we had closed the school. Yeah.
So you just all of a sudden started feeling weak and thirsty, and you say you were urinating a lot.
Yeah.
Okay, and then eventually what happened? Did you eventually have to tell mommy? How did you end up going to the doctor?
After coming out from the camp, I was very weak. I had become thinner. My eyes were almost, I was different. So my mom had to take me to the hospital. They had to do tests. So the doctor came and told us that there's only one test remaining, and that's the diabetic test. Then my mother was curious and she said, my son cannot have, so there's no need to take the test because it could also cost her.
Yeah.
So after arguing for some time, my mother decided to take the test.
Yeah.
And they found out that I had high blood sugar. Yeah.
Wow. And you at this time, of course, don't understand, because you're just 13 years old, you're a little boy. So how did you receive this news? How did the doctor explain it to you? Did the doctor explain it to you himself or herself, or did they explain to mom and then mom explain it to you?
They explained to mom, then mom explained to me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll get back to you. Thanks for sharing that with us, Samuel. Joyce, you took your son to hospital and he was diagnosed with diabetes. How did you receive that news?
It was really shocking, and I even didn't agree. I said no, he cannot have diabetic. So the sugar level was 39. So we were rushed to the hospital, and I was admitted in St. Mary's for 1 week.
You?
Yeah, with the child.
Okay, so you had to be admitted with the child because he was that as well.
Yeah. So we stayed there for 1 week, and then the sugar levels went down, and then we were introduced to injections, which was really disturbing and shocking, and we feared even injecting him. And it was especially bad when you were told to inject you on the stomach. So we really feared so much.
So this drastic change in your life as a parent, and more so, you know, because this was unexpected news for you, how have you helped your son cope with and manage this condition? You've talked about insulin, you've talked about his blood sugars being high, and of course this is something that you have to explain over and over again to a 13-year-old, so that they can understand and comprehend. In terms of management, how have you helped Samuel cope?
Yeah, before even we came out of the hospital, he was really in a denial, so I didn't open it to him that it is forever. So I just told him that you are sick, you will get injection, after a while you will be well. So we came home with that denial, the whole family were not agreeing. And then until we met a group from DMI, that is the group that really helped us to accept. And
how?
They told us about the diabetic. In the hospital we were told that we are now going to change the meal, he will eat differently, he will not be eating what we are eating, and now we changed the cooking in the house. But when we met DMI, we were taught how to use the right food, and that all of us in the family, we need the right food.
So in terms of diet, let's talk about that. That's very important. In terms of supporting Samuel as well, as he manages this condition, what are you doing within the home? Let's talk about diet.
We don't cook different food for Samuel. We all eat the same food.
Great.
Like we don't do the unga from the shop. We go to the regarego and do the unga. If it is veggies, we do a lot of veggies in the family. Now in the morning we eat. We don't take like tea and go. We eat in the morning like we need to have veggies. All of us, we eat together, and then we go to the, like sugar. Sometimes we do without sugar, sometimes we do sugar. But for him, he doesn't do sugar. So sometimes we feel like accompanying him and do without sugar. Yeah.
All right, thanks for sharing that. I'll be back to you. Daktari, take us through how early children can be diagnosed with diabetes, as we try to look at this condition in its totality, and what type of diabetes children in Kenya have.
Okay, thanks Lillian. Must thank you for welcoming us here to Royal Media Services, and for a great day today. Royal Media Services came through seriously. I must say I have utmost respect for kids with type 1 diabetes and their parents, because it's a difficult journey.
So this is type 1.
This is type 1 diabetes, and so probably to trace the steps, what is diabetes and how do you become diabetic? So we say diabetes is when the pancreas is not able to produce enough insulin. Everybody requires insulin. Insulin is one of the cardinal hormones that we have in the body. So insulin acts as a key that opens the door for the cells to get in glucose. So for example, when Samuel was diagnosed, he had a sugar of 39. The normal sugar probably for you and me now would be about 5. So at 39, it's way, way high. Now, he's 39, but he was feeling weak. You are having 5, but you're all right. So let me explain that paradox. So when he's having the sugar at 39, he doesn't have insulin that is opening the cells for that sugar to leave the blood, go into the cells for him to have energy. You have, on the other hand. So despite having 5, you have the key, it's going in, and that's why you have energy. So ultimately, diabetes, the long and short of it is, the body is not producing enough insulin that would be used to open up the cells so that sugar can get into the cells for you to have energy. So we have broadly 3 or 4, but we can talk about 3 types of diabetes. So we have the type 1 diabetes. So type 1 diabetes is where, for example, what he's suffering from. It is where the child, and there are also 2 types of type 1 diabetes, if I may say. So a child is born without the ability to produce insulin, right from birth. Just like the way a child can be born without a hand, without an eye, somebody can be born without the beta cells that produce insulin. So right from birth, you are having type 1 diabetes. And for the classical case that Samuel here has, is where you were born, and somehow for some reasons, your body turns against itself. We call it an autoimmune process. Some cells start consuming those beta cells. They are cells within the pancreas. And so you're producing insulin, you're normal. So you continue reducing the number of insulin producing cells, and when you get to about 12 years, 11 years, about Samuel's age at that time, the body requires a lot of insulin because of the puberty spurt. So he got into puberty, his body requires growth, so he requires a lot of insulin. So because his cells have been decimated, all of a sudden now he has a requirement that is higher than is normal. And that's why we find a lot of boys around 12, 13, that is the time you start finding them with type 1 diabetes. So he has type 1 diabetes, and his would be the type 2 that I'm explaining, where the body slowly finishes the cells. And I'm happy about the mother that now they have accepted these diagnoses. Yeah. It's a lifelong disease because you don't have the beta cells. But luckily we are here to support them, and I'm happy that they are quite motivated.
And Samuel talked to us about how he had been feeling. He was feeling weak, thirsty. He says he was urinating frequently. You know, but away from the symptoms, what would you say is the cause of this? There's a lot of questions coming in about children living a sedentary lifestyle. There's a lot of questions coming in about diet, what we're feeding our children. Is the cause known?
Well, let me just put a little caveat here that there are other children, and especially the teens, who are now starting to get type 2 diabetes. We in the medical fraternity are amazed at how a disease which we knew was the type 2 was for the old guys who are obese or who have family history. Now, because of the foods we are eating, the sedentary lifestyles, no burger, no exercise, just eating a lot of sugar, we have young boys and young adults in their 30s who develop type 2 diabetes. So sometimes even as we are trying to piece out what could be the diagnosis here, we have to differentiate between the type 1 and type 2 because it has a big implication on the type of treatment. The type 1s, we must be on insulin. So like Samuel here must be on insulin. The type 2s, it's a lazy pancreas, if I may call it that. And with a tablet, you can whip the pancreas to produce more insulin. And so I would say, talking broadly about diabetes, our country is experiencing a big boost or jump in the numbers of diabetes, and that has been squarely put on changing lifestyles. So we have less of vegetables and fruits and low glycemic index foods. We can talk about diet later, and also a lot of refined foods and sedentary lifestyles. We don't exercise. Of course, there's the alcohol. There's a big problem of obesity. When you're obese, I talked about the insulin being like a key. So obesity has a way of like plugging the keyhole. So yes, you might be having enough insulin, but the keyhole is blocked, as it were. So obesity is also a big risk factor for developing diabetes.
But then there are those children who are born with it.
Yep.
So we're talking of diabetes right from infancy.
Sure. There's a lot of theories, and type 1 is one of those diseases where it's not very easy to say what is causing it, just like the type 2. But there are theories ranging from the kind of viruses that we are suffering in early age. Some viruses have been known to cause the antibodies against those viruses sometimes confuse the beta cells, and so those are autoimmune diseases. Many theories. There still is a lot of research that is going on, but of course, it's the classical case where somebody is just born without beta cells. I must say, with the changing lifestyles that we are having, is also predisposing us to have higher and higher cases of type 1 diabetes, so that we our physiology is changing, and so the children we are bearing have a predisposition to some diseases, not only diabetes, but many others. Some childhood cancers that are coming up because of the way we are living and the experience they're having while they're in the uterus.
Okay. Samuel, take me through how you manage this condition while in school. Dr. here has said that for type 1 diabetes, which is what you have to be on insulin. So how do you manage that while in school? How has the doctor trained you, or the nurse, or even mom, on how to take your blood sugar, on how to use insulin? Take us through a typical day for you in school in terms of your medication.
Yeah, I've understood myself, and at school, the children normally the children have their meals, their break at 11 a.m.
for break.
Yeah. But I cannot go past 2 hours without eating, so I have to go at 9 a.m. to get some porridge and maybe bread. Then I'll go again at 11.
Yeah.
Then I'll go at lunchtime, and then at 3 p.m.
So you snack regularly?
Yeah.
Okay. So the school, you're on a special diet in the
Yeah.
school, they know, okay?
Yeah, and if sometimes activities are not planned, so I may get low blood sugars. So I have like I must carry a banana, glucose and sugar in the bag.
Yeah.
So when I'm feeling that way, I go and eat. I take the glucose and eat the bananas. But sometimes there's once I fainted, so I could not do those. So the social worker kept some glucose and I absorbed it, and later I recovered. Yeah.
And in terms of checking your blood sugar and your insulin, do you have to do that while in school on some days?
If I carry, I'll have to do it on break time and lunch.
So it's not every day that you have to
Carry, yeah.
Okay. How are the teachers kind to you? Do they support you when you need to perhaps rest a little bit during PE, or when you're hungry? Because you might just get hungry, not necessarily after every 2 hours. You might just feel the need to snack. How do the teachers treat you?
They are kind. They already understand me.
Yeah.
And during PE, I don't feel like I'm tired because it's healthy for me to exercise. So
Good.
I just need to exercise during PE.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Joyce. In terms of the of helping Samuel here cope while in school, what have you had to do as a parent to ensure that he's comfortable and indeed safe while in school?
First, before he goes to school, we ensure that he takes his insulin. He put in the syringe and insert in the stomach. Then after that, he eats well. Then he has a lunch box to carry the snacks. And I went to school and talked to the teacher about his condition. The teachers agreed, and they have given him even a place where he wants to take the blood sugar. He goes to the social worker and takes the blood sugar. But he must always carry something in his bag. A snack, a banana, a fruit, yeah.
Okay. Okay, Daktari, there's a question here. My son has been diabetic for 9 years, and it is an expensive ordeal because diet, the mixed and stripes are not affordable to a layman. So I want to talk about, to you particularly as the Ministry of Health, as a representative of the Ministry of Health, in terms of, how to cope with this in terms of cost implications. What are we looking at? We're looking at consultation as well as testing. We're looking at medication as well. Cost implications for the average Mwananchi,
Okay.
and the supports that there might be for parents such as Joyce here.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me say we have had a long journey with type 1 diabetes as a government. 5-6 years ago, parents were on their own, and the average cost of insulin was like 2,000 at that time. The prices have crashed down because of some partnerships that we have gone in as government with insulin manufacturing companies like Novo Nordisk. And then we have a flagship project of government that is called the Changing Diabetes in Children project. That is a partnership between the Ministry of Health, Novo Nordisk as a manufacturer, the Royal Danish Embassy, and DMI as one of our flagship partners. And the idea of this partnership was to provide insulin at no cost to all children who have type 1 diabetes. Now the biggest problem, and I can imagine the parent who is talking there, is they have not been able to plug into the project. So we work on a hub and spoke mechanism, because in the country is big to be able to trace these children. If it was type 2 diabetes, it would be easier because there are many. Now, let me give a rough idea of the number of children that we're talking about. So 5% of Kenyans have diabetes. 1 in 10 of those would be a child. So we're talking around, there should be something like 10,000 children who have diabetes currently. Now, how many have we put on care? Is about 1,500 currently. So we have 5 hubs across the country which have spokes. The insulin makes the journey, so we want to spare the child to make the journey. They just need the insulin. So the government through KEMSA delivers insulin to, let's say, Nakuru, and Nakuru delivers it to Molo and other satellite facilities. So the children go there. We also have, and part of the reasons why we are raising funds like today is to train the healthcare workers on diagnosing diabetes in children. The biggest problem that diabetes in children has is at diagnosis. You heard Samuel saying he was just feeling weak, he went to the hospital, they think it's malaria, because most of the children come in coma because they have not been diagnosed, so they're in coma. Now you can imagine a typical healthcare worker encountering a child with coma. The last thing he's thinking about is diabetes. So this child is treated for diabetes, for meningitis, I don't know, for all those things. So we are trying to train healthcare workers to have a high index of suspicion about diabetes. And this program, the Changing Diabetes in Children project, is a project that is going to be scaled up. There is a pull out from some of the partners because they have been holding this for the last 5 years. But we are reaching out to the counties, each county, to know that there are about 10, 50, 100. Some counties have even probably 200 children in this project. And it's about the county government to pick up. As the company is pulling out, the companies, other counties have to put in some money.
All right, and we're beginning to close. So I see you have some gadgets here.
Sure.
Very quickly, what would this be?
Okay.
Yeah.
So Samuel explained that he has to test himself every day, or he has to test himself as regularly. So sugar has to be kept within a minimum, maybe between 3.5 and about 9 to make sure that it's not very high or is it very low. So when he's feeling ill, he has to test himself. And I'm sure in his bag, he's carrying one of these. So there are many, many brands. We recommend most of them that have been passed by the Pharmacy and Poisons Board. So to just demonstrate this, I'm going to test you, Lillian. And again, we didn't talk about gestational diabetes. I see you are expecting a bundle of joy very soon. And one of the things that happens in pregnancy is the hormones that we produce during pregnancy, they are anti-insulin. So during pregnancy, a mother has to produce more insulin to counter that resistance of the many hormones. So some ladies are not able to counter that. And so they suffer what we call gestational diabetes mellitus. And when they give birth, because the hormones now come down, the diabetes seems to disappear. But the critical thing about the women who have had gestational diabetes, it just shows us that this lady is not able to mount a counter production of insulin, and so they have a risk of developing type 2 diabetes later in life. So we follow them up later to make sure that we reduce that risk. So these strips are expensive, and the machine, some companies even give it free anyway. It's just like any other company. They make most of their money on the strips. So we are partnering with a lot of these companies to make sure that these strips are available and they are cheap, so that Samuel and other people can test themselves as often. It just takes 5 seconds to know your status. And so we are asking Kenyans, the worst thing is that in Sub-Saharan Africa, about 60% of the people who have diabetes have no idea, because they've never been screened. So we are asking guys, so if I may have one of your fingers to just demonstrate that it just takes just a little sting. You're a brave one. There we are. Okay, you can wipe this here. Just there, 4.5, you're doing well. That's as good as they come.
So that's 4.5. That's within the normal range?
Right at the middle. Very good.
Okay.
You're doing well. And it tells us that...
I did expect you to prick me.
No, it's just a small little prick. Or within hours.
So, okay, 4.5. Meaning this is within the normal range. At what range would one know that definitely something is amiss? Okay,
so we usually say that the normal range is between 3.5 and 7.8. If you're there, you're right. At 7.8, you still not having diabetes, but between 7.8 and 11, I'm worried. That, oh my, you're not able to probably produce enough insulin. But beyond 11, then I say, you are now living with diabetes. And the thing that we ask Kenyans and everybody else is to screen themselves early. A lot of diabetes diagnosis that is done in this country is done because you have a complication now. So a guy comes, he can't see. We try to wonder, why would a 30-year-old have a problem with his eyes? Then we discover, oh, you've been living with diabetes, only that you didn't know, imeharibu macho so far, or you come with a wound that's not healing, or kidney issues. So we're asking guys to go early. Somebody is talking about blindness. This would mean that this is an extreme situation, and somebody went on for too long without seeking treatment? Yep, or they have diabetes and they're not taking care of themselves, insulin, drugs, and so it spoils the eyes, can spoil the brain, the heart, the kidneys, and all the organs, basically. So we're closing now, and I'll get some thoughts from Samuel. In terms of children living with diabetes, is there hope for recovery? Is this a lifelong condition that they must learn to manage and live with? let me say research in type 1 diabetes is very dynamic. It's one of the most dynamic research areas in medicine. For now, it is a lifelong treatment because your pancreas does not produce insulin and you need insulin on a daily basis. So for now, we are injecting the insulin. We have moved to using pens. Pens are very flexible. You carry it along. Now, there's a lot of research that is going on pancreas transplants, on pumps. You can have a pump that you carry. So, and these will be accessible. They are accessible, but they're very expensive. And as they become more and more available, the prices will be coming down. So one day, hopefully, and we are hoping that even insulin, there is a lot of research on oral insulin that is going on so that you don't have to keep injecting yourself. So for Samuel here, I'm praying that he'll be old enough in his lifetime to see cure for type 1 diabetes. We pray for that.
Okay, many thanks, Dr. We're closing now, Samuel. Thank you very much for sharing your story with us. So Samuel, I want you to talk to a child like you who has diabetes and who is being very brave about it, taking their medication when they should, eating healthy, a child who perhaps is very confused right now because maybe they've just been diagnosed. What would you like to say to that little boy or little girl, just to encourage them, seeing that you are currently taking your meds when you should and you're living a very healthy life? What would you like to say to that little boy or little girl?
I'll first like to tell him that he's just a normal kid. It's just because that's a chronic condition. He'll just have to cope with it and let no one discourage him. Tell him that that's a bad disease or it's a demonic thing. It's just a normal thing. So he just have to continue, and anything that is told by the doctor he should not ignore, and he or she will just have to go with the doctor's rules. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks for sharing that. And Joyce, to you as a parent, to parents who are now learning or having to cope with news and accept news that their child is diabetic, what would you tell them? What has been your coping mechanism that you can perhaps share to encourage a parent out there?
Just to tell them just to agree, to accept their child has that condition and be ready to work with him and assist him where necessary.
Yeah.
And he should not treat the child so special to ignore the others. He should bring them, all the children, together. Yeah.
Perhaps you had questions. Maybe you have diabetes in the family. You yourself, are you diabetic? Because these are some of the questions that parents ask. I don't have diabetes. How can my child have diabetes?
In fact, I do not have diabetic. The father also doesn't have diabetic. My parents doesn't have diabetic, but it's along from a very distant family.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for sharing that. So we have your feedback. Let's take that very quickly. Okay. And as I wait on your feedback, which I would like to see on the screen next to me, here somebody is saying that tell Samuel that he's very brave and we celebrate him. Somebody is saying it's really something hard to contemplate when such a young child is diabetic. For an adult, it's different. This is Jomo Gigi. You're saying, kindly, I would like to encourage Samuel to take heart. Samuel is fine. Caleb, Unity, my special appreciation for Dr. Since ascending to the helm of non-communicable diseases docket, we have seen a lot of social awareness on these conditions. Your impact is evidence. Thank you and remain blessed. Barbara, I got diabetes when I was 7 years old. 33 years down the line, I am still alive and healthy. Diabetes is not a death sentence. It only needs managing. So Samuel, do you hear what Barbara there is saying? 7 years, she was diagnosed with diabetes. She's now 33 years old. She says it's all about managing. So keep managing it and you will live a very long and healthy life. And what do you want to be when you grow up?
A neurosurgeon.
A neurosurgeon, great. And God has heard you. Work hard and all the best. Thanks you for joining us.
Thank you.
Yeah, and say hi to your buddies in school, okay?
Yeah.
Tell them Lillian Muli said hi. Mama Josh.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thanks so much for watching Citizen Weekend. My name is Lillian Muli. Thank you very much, Dr. We hope to host you at another forum to talk about diabetes in adults, because those questions are coming in fast and furious. Adults really asking how to manage this condition in adulthood. And indeed, Mama Samuel Joyce Washuka, we thank you very much for your time tonight. Thanks for joining us on Citizen Weekend. Thanks for your feedback, and indeed for watching Citizen Weekend. My name is Lillian Muli. All the best and good night.